If you are making less than $100,000 take home as a realtor, this is the episode for you. Stay tuned.
This episode of Keeping It Real is brought to you by Real Geeks. How many homes are you going to sell this year? Do you have the right tools? Is your website turning soft leads into interested buyers? Are you spending money on leads that aren't converting? Well, Real Geeks is your solution. Find out why agents across the country choose Real Geeks as their technology partner. Real Geeks was created by an agent for agents. They pride themselves on delivering a sales and marketing solution so that you can easily generate more business. Their agent websites are fast and built for lead conversion with a smooth search experience for your visitors. Real Geeks also includes an easy-to-use agent CRM. So once a lead signs up on your website, you can track their interest and have great follow-up conversations. Real Geeks is loaded with a ton of marketing tools to nurture your leads and increase brand awareness. Visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod and find out why realtors come to Real Geeks to generate more business. Again, visit realgeeks.com/keepingitrealpod. And now, on to our show.
Today's episode is brought to you by Corded.io. Are you looking for agents to join your brokerage or team? Now, as a real estate recruiter, I can tell you the answer is always yes. But most agents aren't looking to move right now. So how do you know who to contact? Well, what if I were to tell you there's a recruiting and retention tool powered by artificial intelligence that shows you exactly which agents in your local market are looking to leave their brokerage right now, and which agents at your own firm are also looking to leave you? Now, I've been recruiting realtors for 15 years and I've hired over 2,000 agents. I can tell you with no exaggeration, this is the tool I've been waiting for. Corded's AI looks for trends across dozens of variables for each agent in your market and shows you which agents they believe are likely to move. Not only does it do that, but Corded's AI went and visited my recruiting website and read everything I offer. So now when I'm recruiting, Corded's AI tells me exactly what to say based on that agent's needs and what my brokerage can offer. It even writes emails for me. I've never seen anything like it, and I use it every single day. Now, if you are looking to grow your brokerage, Corded.io is the best tool out there. Visit Corded.io to schedule a demo. Again, that's Corded.io. And now, onto the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, the largest podcast made by real estate agents and for real estate agents. My name is DJ Paris. I am your guide and host through the show. And in just a moment, we're going to be speaking with Matt Miale, who has the largest real estate team in all of Connecticut. He's going to tell you all about how he runs his team and what he teaches to his agents so that they can become successful. Before we get to Matt, just a couple of quick reminders. Oh, this is something you might not know. So almost every day, about 3-4 times a week, I post a 60-second reel on all the different social media networks. We're talking about Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, TikTok, probably some others. But if you are not following us on social, you should. So probably the easiest way is Instagram. Look for Top Agent Interviews. That is our channel, Top Agent Interviews. Subscribe. You will get 3 or 4 times a week, a 60-second tip that I have culled from these interviews of exactly what you should be doing right now to grow your business. So please subscribe. We appreciate it. Also, tell a friend about this podcast. It's the best way you can help us grow is by telling another agent. This is a perfect episode to share with other agents because there's so much good stuff in here. Wait until you hear Matt. And also leave us a review, whatever app you might be listening to us on, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Please let us know what you think of the show. Leave us a review. We appreciate it. We take your suggestions and then we modify the show to better meet your needs. All right, guys, let's get right to it. My conversation with Matt Miale. What's the best piece of advice you ever heard as an agent?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. Well, if you sit in a room full of 100 agents, I bet you could get advice from all of them, right? Because everybody seems to be an expert at whatever it is that they think that they know. But the truth is, the best piece of advice that I got actually came a little bit as a admonishment. A mentor of mine, good friend of mine, a guy that I like to go to with all my bright ideas. At one point, um, sat me down, looked me in the eye, and said, "You know what your problem is, Matt? You're never going to stop having good ideas. The issue isn't a lack of good ideas. Good ideas are aplenty. It's the ability to pick the right one for right now." And that was really powerful for me because at the end of the day, what that really meant, what it meant to me was and it wasn't even the sort of cliche like, oh, the difference is execution. Because sure, the difference is execution. But you know what? I've executed on a lot of good ideas that wound up not being the best thing for me to do at that moment in time. Um, it's picking what are you going to do right now that's going to move you the closest to your goal and get you the actual outcome that you're after. My favorite example of this with real estate agents is how many real estate agents are out there totally committed to their job. They're so all in. They're like, this is the year. I'm going to do 40 units this year. I'm going to hit 20 million this year. I'm going to hit all the goals that I set out to hit. And then a business opportunity pops up or a flip, and they just immediately shift and go, you know what? I'm going to flip this house instead. And to me, it's like, well, maybe that doesn't make it the flip isn't a bad idea in that moment. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, you might be able to make 50, 100, maybe even $200,000, but is that the right thing right now? Are you always ready to just throw away the goal that you had for the next new thing? And I think that plagues our industry, particularly agents, that if agents would just commit to, are you going to be the best agent? Because you can't be the best agent and also flip 25 houses and also just be ready to throw your goal away at any moment in time. And that advice, it led me to get super focused on picking the right thing versus the wrong thing. You hear that in other terms too, where people say like, you have to say a lot more no's than you do yeses. Like Warren Buffett said that, Charlie Munger said that they say no to a lot more opportunities than they say yes to.
I can relate a lot to this because I recruit real estate agents. We have 42,000 of them here locally in Chicago and in the surrounding areas. And as a result, we have all these funnels for agents who aren't our agents yet, who, can come into our sphere. They, answer, something that we're putting out there. And so we have all these different funnels or buckets that they can come into. And the moment one comes in, I got really excited. And as you said, there's no shortage of bad ideas. There's always leads coming in for at least for what I do. And the hard part is not necessarily taking the brand new lead that just popped in lieu of reaching out to the person that I need to reach out to probably 10 more times in the next several months. It's all the fortunes in the follow-up.
That's
so,
right.
It's really exactly what you're saying. It's not, but I get excited because that new shiny lead just came in and it's like, oh, maybe they'll come over right away. They probably won't, but I get excited because it's new. And then, I get stuck. So, all right. So that's a great piece of advice.
I mean, I just think like business is the long game. And so just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. It doesn't make it the right next thing for you to do. And so, for sure, there are some fundamentals that every agent has to do if you want to be a full-time agent, but it just feels to me, and again, it was humbling to get that advice early in my career because it's true. What I was waking up every day looking for the next best, brightest idea rather than just going and doing the one thing that I had already committed to doing consistently over time in order to build something that was sustainable.
What's the worst piece of advice you've ever received in real estate?
Worst piece of advice. Well, I've gotten a lot of bad advice too. But I think the one that pops in my head, again, early in my career, I was talking to an experienced agent, somebody that I looked up to, respected, and was trying to get some guidance around how to work with a particular buyer. Now, this was probably one of the first 5 or 6 clients that I had. So we're talking 2006, 2007, early in my career. And I was showing them properties that the client had requested to go see. And the agent just said, "Oh, don't show that house." She pointed to one of them and said, "Don't show that house." And I said, "What? Why not?" And she said, "It's a split level. Who wants to live in a split?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know split levels were bad. I didn't
Right.
have any idea that that was a thing, right? So I took that advice, and called the clients and echoed the sentiment without thinking it through, right? Without really getting like good clarity about like what I was about to say. And I said, well, this one's a split level, so that might not be as desirable. And the client said, well, I grew up in a split level.
Oh,
And well, fortunately I was able to recover, but why
sure.
was it why it's the worst advice? It wasn't that incident. What I learned from it, I learned an amazing lesson from that. It was the worst advice because it presumes,
Yeah.
it takes a position of presumption that that we should never ever have as real estate agents. We should never presume to understand what it is that the client wants or needs. We should always, always, always be open to letting them guide the process. And so it was the worst advice because it came from the worst place. It came from this place of judgment and decision making that we really don't earn with our clients until they give us permission to do that. And in that point, I certainly didn't have the permission. I certainly didn't have the experience, and I most definitely did not have did not have the knowledge base to be making that kind of a judgment. And I think that's terrible advice. I think that we have to work our way through a relationship in order to get our clients what they want. It's not what we think they want. It's not what it's not what their parents think they want. It's not what we think they should want. It's to get them what they want. That's what pure advocacy and service is. And so I'll never forget that moment. It was like, wow, that was really, really terrible advice and driven by totally the wrong thing. So
Well, Matt Miale is our guest. He's from the Miale team at Keller Williams Legacy Partners in Connecticut. His team covers the entire Connecticut area, and he's expanding into other states. But let me tell you more about Matt. Matt Miale is a high impact entrepreneur. He's a real estate leader and a builder of scalable businesses that prioritize both performance and purpose. With over 2 decades of experience, Matt leads one of Connecticut's top producing real estate teams, closing more than, get this, 600 homes annually, and helping agents achieve peak production through structure, accountability, and simplicity. He's the founder of Agent Production Academy, Empower Events, and the Real Estate MD podcast, each designed to help agents, leaders, and teams grow faster and with more intention. Known for his bold leadership style, Matt empowers others to focus on what matters most while eliminating noise that doesn't drive results. Whether he's coaching team leaders, building systems, or leading daily team calls, Matt brings unmatched energy and clarity to everything he touches. His mission is simple: live an action-packed and wildly fulfilling life every single day and help those around him do the same. I want everybody to check out Matt's team website, which is themialeteam.com. Also, his podcast, Real Estate MD Pod. We will have a link to that in the show notes. Check that out. Matt, welcome to the show.
thank you. That was an awesome intro. I love it. I love
You've
it.
done a lot of awesome things, so I'm excited to have you on and to share sort of some of the wisdom you've gained, as you already have, in the advice you said earlier to our audience. Well, I always like to start at the beginning. So tell us how and why you got started in real estate.
If you haven't heard the story of the reluctant realtor, you're about to. My professional career started out in advertising. I worked from Boston to LA, predominantly in new business and sales for various different iterations. And you can sort of timestamp it. This is early 2000s, so I did spend a lot of time in the early phases of internet advertising. So back in the day when web banners and pay-per-click was not a thing yet. It was really just about online advertising through digital media. And I spent the better part of my first 7 or 8 years in professional sales selling internet advertising. I kind of got lucky in finding an opportunity with a company called Network Communications Incorporated, which was a publishing company. In 2003, I hooked up with them, but they published this thing called the Real Estate Book. And those agents that have been around since prior to 2010 would know the Real Estate Book because it was the most widely published real estate listings magazine in the country. Over 10 million copies every 4 weeks in 700 markets. And basically, This was the best possible version, pre-Zillow, pre-realtor.com, MLS for consumers to get access to listings. It was in a publishing format. And so I worked for network communications for a couple of years. And while doing that, I got exposed to the industry. And I'd never had any exposure to real estate prior to that. I didn't really understand the business, but I spent, the better part of 24 to 36 months flying around the country, going into boardrooms, going into brokerage meetings, and selling advertising to real estate agents. I realized quickly I was much more entrepreneurial than I was that I was likely to be a corporate guy. And so I made the decision in 2005 that I was going to pursue a career for myself. And I didn't quite know whether I was going to go to law school or I was going to go get an MBA or what. I didn't really have any clue what my future held. Of course, I was, in my late 20s at the time. So life was wide open to me. But I figured I'd go get a real estate license in the interim just to hold me over. I figured that would be a good way for me to, sort of fill the gaps in between this big career that I had and whatever came next. And it didn't take very long for me to figure out that, like, maybe this is the thing. Maybe this thing right here is the thing. It took a little while for me to get comfortable with the idea because, of course, like a lot of people, I had ego and, I'd had a title and I put on a suit every day and I got to fly on airplanes and go into boardrooms and I felt real important about myself, in that job. But it didn't pay nearly as well as real estate. It was nowhere near as fulfilling. I mean, it didn't feel like I was satisfying or serving, my heart in that job because there wasn't really any beneficiary. It was all ad buys and cost per impressions and things like that. So when I got into real estate, I found a part of me was being filled up. I was thrilled to work with customers. I loved the process. I loved the service component of it, and I was actually pretty good at it. So it came kind of natural. So moving through 2006, I got my license. 2007, 2008, I'm sort of getting my feet wet. I'm still dabbling in other things. I'm like doing some consulting. I'm still doing some other sales. And like 2008, somewhere around May, I'm like, you know what? The market's really, I'm going to jump in.
The best possible time to
This is the
join this
best
business.
time to do this. And so I burned the boats, blew up the bridges, jumped in with both feet, and in November, Enron collapsed. And so it was a wild experience. But the best thing about that, and this is really the message for every agent that's out there today, suffering through this current climate. The best thing about starting in 2008, really committing to being in the business, is I didn't know any better. I did not know any better. And so the market conditions of that time were the market conditions that trained me, that made me the person that is able to get up every day and focus on what matters versus what doesn't. Back then, it was a totally different market than we're in now. As far as the conditions, it was a short sale, pre-foreclosures, distressed inventory market versus now where we're in low inventory and a whole bunch of other conditions, again, depending on which market you're in. But the job was the same. The job was wake up and sign something, sell something, or set an appointment. That was it. Those were the three hallmarks of whether I had a successful day. I would look at the calendar and I would say, where is an opportunity for me to go sign an agreement, either with a buyer client that's going to hire me or a listing client that's going to hire me? Where is there an opportunity for me to take one of my current customers who's already hired me and find them a house that they're willing to buy, or find somebody who's willing to buy one of the listings that I currently have? Or if I can't do either one of those things today, I'm just going to go find the next person that I can go sit down with and tell them why I should be the realtor that they choose. And so sign something, sell something, or set an appointment became my mantra. I wrote it every day on the top of a yellow notepad that I worked off of because I did everything pre-CRM because I couldn't afford Top Producer. And I figured that all of that technology stuff was more confusing than I needed. So I built my entire business out of a spiral notebook, just flipping the pages and writing on the top, sign, sell, set every single day. My objective was never to end the day without doing at least one of those things. And so that was the business. That's how I started.
Yeah, I used to have I put this on my desktop on my computer. It was basically says no more 0 days.
Yes.
So even if I got to the end of the day or close to the end of the day And I've never been a producing agent, but for what I do is I recruit realtors, so I have a similar kind of thing, and I have to kind of do the exact same activities you're talking about. And it would be like, oh my gosh, like I spent all day on customer service or servicing my existing agents that I'm trying to recruit, but I haven't generated any new leads, or I haven't closed anyone in a few days. And realizing that all three of those activities have to be done as best as possible, and always remembering that there's ways to hit those. There's habits to begin to hit those. And Brian Buffini talks a lot about this, and I think most of us probably have heard of Brian Buffini, maybe probably listen to him a bit, but he's a big fan of that, like meet 2 to 5 people every single day as one of the sort of getting at least more people into your database. And it's like, even if you just did that and nothing else, you'd never really be out of business. You might not become a great realtor, and if you don't learn the craft and do a really good job, you might not be great at customer service. But if you're meeting people every day, you're gonna find new opportunities.
I mean,
And so
I'm so passionate about what this industry has done for me and what it can do for people, and then equally as frustrated with how people waste the opportunity.
yeah,
Like the real estate license might be the greatest gift to somebody with the natural service heart of anything out there, because you,
100%.
you understand that like the simplest thing you can do is wake up every day and go help people solve problems.
Yeah,
And if you happen to have a real estate license and you're the person that helps somebody figure out how to get their patio fixed or get a new roof put on or figure out a drainage problem or get a plumber to come over and fix that leak that they've got or whatever, if you become a professional problem solver in your community and all you do as a job, as the job, is make sure that you know lots of people and know how to solve lots of problems, your real estate business will take care of itself. You do not need a fancy CRM. You don't need to spend thousands of dollars on leads. You don't need to live in a dark, cold basement with a swinging light bulb over your head and cold call for 6.5 hours every day. Those things are not necessary. But what happens is, because agents are unwilling to do the work of engaging the world, which is one of our catchphrases, we say you must engage the world. Because the agents are unwilling to go and engage the world and talk to the barista and talk to the people and network the community and be involved, they wind up defaulting to sitting behind a computer and playing office all day and getting far, far worse results. When you really meet top producing agents, what do they all have in common? They're out there meeting people. They
yeah,
talk to people
yep,
every single time. That very rarely do you meet. It's a rare case where the top producing agent is like, "Oh, I'll tell you my system. My system is I do 4.5 hours of cold calling every day." Yes, those agents exist, and there are top producers, but that is actually the edge case, not the norm case. And
totally.
and then what happens is we take brand new people and we try to teach them edge case instead of
Yeah,
shooting down the middle. And I think that's bananas. I think it's so much of the rhetoric in the industry is about like, grinding it out and this hustle culture mindset. And like, I got to tell you, you can have a lot of fun in this business. You can
yeah.
have a lot of fun. You can wake up every day and go meet a bunch of people, and be a professional problem solver, be the resource for them. And your business will take care of itself. It will just literally grow all by itself.
I had an interview once with a top producing agent, and he said, this is going to sound funny, but he goes, I'm the only one I know that does this. And it's very similar to what you were talking about, where he said, the way I deepen relationships with clients, and also it's how I get invited to meet new clients through referrals, is he said it's really not as much about me helping them buy or sell a property, which I do. I do a good job of that. But he said I will call them. Then there's like 7 years in between. And they're going to use you again. So what do you do? And he said what I was always doing was calling people. And he goes, I realized that everyone who owns a home always has an unfinished project, whatever it is. Could be something super minor, getting some holes replaced in the walls where paintings used to be, or could be getting a new roof or whatever. And he said everyone's got something on that to-do list that they're just kind of pushing down the kicking down the field because they're just they don't have time to do it. He said I would just call and say like, hey, do you have any unfinished projects right now? I want to help you with that. And he would just go, okay, let's help you take the next step. I got the right person for you. Give me a day or two. I'll be. And he's like, that's all I did. He's talking about solving problems. I was like, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
And he goes, because everybody's got one. And then he says, inevitably, I just get business that way.
Well, you're again, you're coming from contribution. You're entering the conversation with a thoughtful heart, saying, "Hey, how can I help you right now?" And people appreciate that. And then maybe every 10 calls, there's somebody that's like, "Yeah, you can help me." And oh, by the way, you might be able to help my neighbor too, because they were
Yeah.
just mentioning the other day that they're getting their house ready to sell. And I'm so glad you called. It's again, it's not complicated. I think that we've just brought so much complexity to the industry from the standpoint of how we operate. And what I literally think, my calling is to help agents simplify it down to the basics, not to make it sound that it's not to make it sound like it's rudimentary, because it's not. The transactions obviously involve a pretty sophisticated level of understanding, and you've got to navigate the emotional experience of the client that you're serving. And so there's a whole lot of skill that goes into that. But the foundational elements of the JOB, the part that's hard, is the acquisition of new customers. And that part, you just go serve people, just go be available to help people, and the rest of it's going to work itself out. Now, that requires you to engage the world. If you sit in your house waiting for them to show up, that's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and the worst part is that sometimes it does happen, and that will sort of reinforce this idea that something falls into our lap. We get lucky. You get that phone call that you weren't expecting, that you didn't really earn, but you whatever, you got lucky, and then you're like, "This is how it works sometimes." And
I
then
mean, it's the worst thing that can happen to a brand
yeah,
new agent in the business is they can stumble themselves into like a $1.2 million listing, by accident, and be like, "This is the greatest thing ever." And it's like,
yeah,
boy, listen, I'm not trying to burst your bubble here, but that one did not show up as a result of effort. Like, sometimes
right.
that's what happens. And then, you will have to deploy effort over time. You will have to.
So let's talk about sort of the conditions of the market right now. They're fairly
Yeah.
universal in this country. Obviously, there's exceptions and other markets that are probably thriving. Certainly in Chicago, we're dealing with. I mean, you deal with the entire state of Connecticut, so you know a lot more about on the East Coast. But for us, we just have a lot lack of inventory. We have a lot of people locked into 3% mortgages who don't want to move, and you can understand that. So we just have a lot fewer listings, and of course we have buyers that are coming in with not a whole lot of inventory. So and
Yeah.
there's people who are pining away for that 3% mortgage that they missed out on
Yep.
as a buyer, and so they're thinking maybe I should wait. And so there's just a few of those challenges, plus all the recent changes in the industry, and certainly some of the bad publicity. I live in Chicago, where the headquarters of the National Association of Realtors are right down the street, and we certainly know that they've had some bad press. So there are some challenges, but
No doubt.
there's always opportunity too. So I would love to know. This kind of harkens back to your trial by fire, getting thrown in at really one of the more challenging times, probably the most challenging time in recent history to be a realtor, and just kind of going, oh, I don't really know that this is as bad as other people know, because in 2005 I wasn't practicing when it was a little bit easier, a lot
Yeah.
easier. So, how are you? You've got a big team. You guys close a home, actually several homes almost every single day.
Yes.
What are you doing to keep the team motivated, to keep the productivity going? Is it the same activities as always, or have you pivoted? So, just love to hear that, sort of your thoughts there.
Well, we for sure pivoted. The thing is I don't think you ever stop pivoting. Having been in a leadership role now, let's just say for 15 years since I started the team in 2010. I mean, it feels like every 12 to 18 months you're pivoting. You're there. There's always a new market that you need to adapt to, and the new market is only new and requires adaptation until everybody gets the story. And then once everybody gets the story, everybody goes, "Oh, okay, these are the rules of the game," and engage. And then it gets busy again. And then something changes, and then people pivot, and then everybody wants to hold on. What are the rules of the game? Oh, the rules are this: ready, set, engage. And so I feel like I've seen that happen a lot. So to address where we're at right now, this is no question a skills based market. The agents that are winning right now are agents that are practicing, are agents that are very very good at the dialogues that they need to have. And I don't like using the word script, because again, a script sounds like it's prepared and the same every time. It's not really what it is, but there are conversations There are moments in conversations where you do know that there's an outcome. So let's take the one that you just brought up. For instance, you've got a client who's in a 3% mortgage, but living inside of a house that no longer suits their needs, and saying, well, I have a 3% mortgage. I'm living in a house that no longer suits my needs, but I'm willing to sit here and suffer because I don't want to participate in a higher mortgage. And so there's a conversation there. There's a crafted conversation that you can have with that person that doesn't necessarily, it's not about convincing them, but at least opens the door to what the realities are between them staying versus them going. And I think, again, the most experienced agents are practicing those conversations. They're practicing what are the right questions to ask. And in order to help expose that potential seller to the potential opportunity to miss out on additional increasing opportunity in the market, on the lifestyle that they might live in the house that they actually desire, and what is the actual cost of that versus the cost of staying. And so those risk reward sort of certainty versus uncertainty dialogues are crucial. But most agents, they're looking for well, tell me what to say. The answer is, well, there's nothing to say. There's questions to ask, and then there's information to provide, and then outcomes that you can help your customer understand, which will lead them there. So another example of this is just sort of like, how do you win in a hyper competitive market like the market that we're in here in Connecticut, where our inventory is operating at about 30% of what we had pre-COVID. I mean, we just don't have houses to sell, and we have so many buyers who want to buy homes. And how do you help a buyer understand the risk and consequences of, let's take a real controversial one. Let's really spike the message boards, waiving a home inspection.
Sure.
Like how do you talk to a buyer about waiving a home inspection without saying you have to do this or endorsing it, but giving them the freedom to make the decision and understand the risk? And I think that that's the difference. I think that what professional agents do is they practice that conversation until they understand exactly what words to say to help a customer understand why waiving a home inspection might be in their best interest, even though it's not in their best interest. And the two things can actually coexist, So
Exactly.
it's a complicated, nuanced conversation that professionals can have, and amateurs struggle with. And so that's how you move people through the pipeline.
Yeah, you practice, you drill, and we're talking about drills, and I love Chat GPT is very helpful for this. For you can for $20 a month, or maybe even for free. I guess you could do it for free as well. Is you can start talking to your phone and saying, hey, imagine you're a home seller, you've got a 3% mortgage. I'm going to start asking you questions, and I'm going to try to address concerns you might have, not to try to persuade you, but just to keep the conversation going and maybe offer a different perspective. For example, another thing to consider, because I'm in that situation where my home serves me today. It probably won't serve me in a year. And but in a year, if rates come down, I'm going to be competing up against a heck of a lot more buyers.
Yep.
So would I rather compete now, pay a little bit more, maybe, than I'd like to, or certainly my rate's going to be higher than I'd prefer it to be, but whatever, 6.5%, I can handle that. But still not super comfortable. But would I rather compete in today's environment versus, a year where maybe rates come down a full 1.5? Well, then, but the floodgates are open, and now all of a sudden, we might be giving away even more. So and again, not to persuade me to make that decision, but just to get me to realize, there are sort of other things to consider. Yeah. And also just to have that conversation about what's most important to you right now. Most people consider dating the rate, marrying the home, and it's like, oh yeah, of course. It's like nobody wants to buy when the stock is down either, right? But that's the best time, obviously. Or
well,
one of
in the situation you just outlined, for agents that are listening that say, hey, Matt, I encounter this all the time. What I would say is the question for you is, well, how long do you expect to be in this next house that you're in?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it's going to be a while. So
yeah, you're going to go 7 or 8 years, and you go, okay,
yeah.
cool. So over the course of that 7 or 8 years, that you're going to be there, are you anticipating that you're going to get a house that you really enjoy and that
Yeah.
fulfills the needs for your family? And like, because nobody actually wants to transact real estate. That's not why people wake up and call a realtor. They don't say today's the day to buy.
Yeah.
That's not how it works. It's a life need that they're trying to solve for. And it's either my house doesn't work for me anymore, or my house is too expensive, or, there's a million different conditions that can exist, which would make somebody pick up the phone, call a realtor and say, I think now is the time. But a really experienced agent understands how to guide a client through the process of discovery that gives them all the options. And then also, and this is the most important part, a really good advocate also stays detached from the outcome, in that maybe now's not the right time. But here's the good news is I'm not going anywhere. So when the time is right, you'll call me because I did a good job in helping you make a decision. And that is the beauty of the business, is that you're not actually selling anything. That concept of like selling houses is just really outdated. It's not what we do anymore. We sell our service. For sure, there is a sale. At some point, someone needs to hire you, and they need to make a decision based on the value proposition that you presented, that you're the best person to serve their need. But the house is irrelevant, right? Back to that comment about the split level. Like, it doesn't really matter what house the client buys. It's what's right for them. That's the most important piece.
Yeah, it's such a great conversation. I was thinking if I were a producing agent today and I didn't have, I wasn't swarmed with my own listings, and or maybe I'm dealing with a lot fewer listings in for my buyers, I might think, okay, well, what do I do right now? Well, one thing I could do is I could call everybody in my database and say, hey, I'm updating your records, and I realize I don't know your 3-year sort of a plan for where you currently are, or maybe 5-year. I just would love to know, like, what are you thinking of moving in the next few years? Because I need to start thinking about how to get you ready for that, or just want to update my records. It's as simple as that. And all of a sudden you'll find all sorts of, maybe not immediate opportunity, but you'll certainly have the person go, wow, that's really thoughtful of you. That's super kind. Is their accountant doing that? Maybe not. Is their accountant saying, hey, let's talk about the next 5 years? Probably not. Probably just saying, let's do the
Probably
taxes
not.
now.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. A good financial advisor does that,
Yeah.
but even a lot of those people don't. So you have
And
this.
candidly, even a lot of those guys are not practicing the way to have a conversation with a client who's, nervous about what's the impact of tariffs going to be on my
Yeah.
401k, and they're not practicing either. So the differentiation between a pro and an amateur is the quality of the conversation. And I appreciate the skill and I appreciate the craft of being a professional real estate agent, because I know that that we put the time in on our team to make sure. I mean, literally this morning, our morning call went an hour and 15 minutes as we practiced live. Our entire team of 30 full-time professional agents practiced live, walking a buyer through offer presentation. Now, you'd think for a team that's putting 600 houses under contract in a year, that offer preparation and offer presentation would be rudimentary, but we don't take that for granted. I look at that like, professional football players don't stop practicing throwing and catching, right? They don't stop practicing the fundamentals. They don't say, well, we're at the NFL level now. We only throw in the game. We only catch in the game. Like, how insane would that be? Like, but that's what agents do. They wait for the moment. They wait for the game moment to practice. But that's just not how we operate. So my advice to agents that are out there, and so I know agents really often don't like the idea of practice. They feel weird. You got to have fun with it. It's practice. It's fun. It's like,
Yeah.
this is where you should mess up and laugh and joke and say stupid things and then be like, all right, let me try that again. Practice the conversations, because there are outcomes that your clients are really waiting for. They want you to help them. That's what they're there for. They're looking for help around this.
That is a very, very wise statement, that the quality of conversations is really what differentiates the top from everyone else. And that is absolutely true. And it's true in my business and in my recruiting business as well, because there's lots of recruiters, there's lots of great firms out there. And, one firm to another, yeah, there's slight differences, between Keller and Coldwell and
Sure.
Remax and Century 21. They're all Berkshire. They're all good companies. They all have
Sure.
great stuff.
Totally.
And it's a more of, and splits are kind of wherever they are. But the reality of it is, it's about having the best conversations and knowing sort of how to continue those conversations versus, hey, are you thinking of moving your firm? Oh, you should talk to me.
Yeah.
Because of course, hey,
It's
that's
like
great when that happens,
yeah.
but it's more about, hey, let's talk about your plan. Where do you want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? How is your brokerage helping you do that or not? And so I use that a lot, and I need it. But do I practice it a lot? No. And that is a great reminder for me and probably everyone to think about. Do we have a drill partner? Do we have somebody that we can actually role play with and throw really tough objections, and not objections so that you can overcome and win the business, as Matt says? That's not really the point, but just being able to to absorb that question, to not let it throw you off your game, and to have an answer, to have an actual answer that's authentic and true, and not to, and again, it's a little scary. You do have to humble yourself a little bit to drill. And it reminds me of that great, it's one of my favorite sayings. It's before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's just like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I just got to keep drilling.
That's it. Well, as long as you're going to be in the business, and you started this out by saying, do you pivot? And yes, you pivot. I mean, the conversations I'm having today are markedly different than the conversations I had 3 years ago, and significantly different than the conversations I had 5 years ago. Pre-COVID, or at the beginning of the pandemic, what kind of conversations did I have to have with a seller about the long-term impact of what was happening in the world? And the quality of those conversations determines, are those clients for life? Did they feel they got good guidance and counsel from you at a time when they needed it? And if all you're looking for is a transaction, if you're a hammer and everybody's a nail, you're going to get lucky a couple times, because there's going to be some people that are going to show up and say like, "Hey, I'm a nail. You want to sell
Right
me?"
time, right place.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
going to happen. And there's lots of those agents out there. And you know what? They sell 3 to 4 houses a year, and they don't get referral and repeat business. Where the average agent on our team is selling 30 to 40 homes a year, and our business is 80% repeat sphere and referral business. That's who we are. Why? Because we practice the conversations we have. We are full-time professional agents that go into the marketplace with a desire to serve, and yes, sell houses too. But first, we solve problems. That's what we do first.
Yeah, it's that givers get mentality. I want to talk about events. I know your team is, and you particularly are very passionate about creating value-based events. And
Totally.
so, you've created a service all around that. But tell us about sort of your philosophy around client events and what you've seen be most effective.
Well, it's such a great segue, because it really does speak to the philosophy that I bring to the business, which is that, early in my career, I was taught that script. Matt, call everyone and say hi, and then ask them, who do you know that wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? And it didn't feel right then. And then when I did it a few times, I was like, this is really awful. It's not aligned with what I'm really interested in doing. It doesn't feel anything like the professional sales jobs that I used to have, which had this needs analysis and custom designed solution. It feels incredibly vapid.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's a better way. That said, you do have to lead generate. Lead generation is a huge part of what you have to do every day. So there was a moment in my career, it was pretty early on, I would say 2009, where I was starting to have some early success. Maybe I had, sold, I think in 2009, I sold maybe 50 houses, as more or less a solo agent. I think I had some like transaction support, but nothing.
Which, by the way, great. What's that? Your third year? That's a really pretty good third year. Yeah.
Third year, short sales galore. I mean, I probably at all times had 15 to 20 short sales listed. I didn't have any like REO relationships. I just hustled for people that needed help. Like I was looking for people that needed help. And so when I found them, I would list their properties and then I would serve them. So I had a great sort of business, sort of early business getting going. And I realized that I was doing what a lot of agents do, because fundamentally I like people. I mean, that's a core part of my personality. I like people, but I was doing a terrible job at keeping in touch with all these people. There was just so many of them, and it was really hard to stay in relationship. I want to reframe this too for the younger listeners. 2010, we weren't texting a lot. This was like, we were 2-3 years into the cell phone, smartphone thing. 2007, the iPhone came out. texting wasn't really yet a primary mechanism for communication. And I don't really think, I mean, Facebook was what, 2009,
Yeah.
10, something like that. So, we're still operating like probably faxing shit. Like I was probably still faxing offers to every third agent, So communication was a little more challenging. So I was out one night after a softball game with one of my buddies, and we were talking, and he also owned a business, a construction business. We were talking about ways that we've successfully gone and gotten new clients. And he just made this comment because this was a bar that had 86 craft beers on tap. And at the time, I was kind of into that. And he just made this kind of comment like, it's just too bad you can't try them all. And it immediately, like, some combination of the conversation we were having about business building and trying 86 beers, I was like, but what if you could? What if I had a beer tasting? What if I invited all these people that I've served that are part of my community that I'm building around my real estate business to come to a beer tasting?
Yeah.
I wonder if I could do that. And so I reached out to the manager of that bar the next day, and I said, hey, what would it cost me to rent out the bar for a night? And if I did that, could I do like 12 2-ounce samplers for each, for everybody that comes in? Or maybe it was 20. It was like 36 ounces of beer, something like that, like 3 beers. Could I do that for everybody? And could I do like a Bavarian food thing sometime in November? And I came up with this concept called Harvest Fest, and it was my very first event. I was sweating bullets because the price that they gave me was $8,800. So it's going to be $8,800 for me to have 100 people there. So it was $88 a head. I was totally stressed, because I was like, that was at a time when like $8,800 was like a lot of money. I needed that money in order to like pay my own bills the next month.
Sure.
But I was like, well, but I feel like if I can get all 100 people in this room, I can probably get some business from it, and it'll help me move the relationships forward. So I created the event, came up with it. I had a fantastic assistant at the time who helped us organize it, and we put the event together. And that night of the event, I'm sweating bullets because I'm like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
3 of the people that I had invited that had RSVP'd came with a friend
Ah,
that they hadn't RSVP'd for. And they came in and they immediately apologized. Matt, this is so cool. I'm so sorry, but I brought my friend Joe. He has to meet you. He wants to buy a house. Matt, I'm so sorry. I brought my friend Sally. Sally, I know she's not invited and you want to start, but Sally needs to get her house on the market right away. Yeah, like immediately, 3 people showed up that night that became my client. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. I never asked anybody for referrals. None of the conversations leading up to the event or the invitation had anything to do with real estate. It was nothing more than come join me for a beer tasting to thank you for all your support as I've gotten my real estate business up and going. And Harvest Fest became an annual event that we did every year. We did it for 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, or 2010 to 2019. So maybe 9 years we did it, because 20 we canceled because of COVID. And so that was an annual event. And what I learned from that was that the event itself was the least important part. The most important part was the opportunity to stay in deep relationships with lots of people over a period of time, was to create something memorable that put you into an environment that went beyond just realtor and into, like, call it friend zone. Like, hey, we're more than just, this is more than professional. It was something that was in alignment with me personally, because I liked to drink beer. So it wasn't unusual for me to be in a bar drinking good beer. And so all of those things created authenticity, alignment, and a great opportunity for me to stay in touch with people. And the business just grew. And then we said, well, what kind of events also work like that? And then as the team grew, we built bigger and bigger events, to the point now where we do 8 to 12 VIP client events every year, and giveaways. Our biggest event, we do 15. We typically get about 1,500 people at a minor league ballpark here in Hartford, the Hartford Yard Goats. We invite like 4,000 people to that event. The invitations are all personal invitations. This is not a email blast. We call them, we text them, we ask them if they can join us, because what's most important is the relationship building.
yeah.
And the events as a part of your business can be the greatest lead generator of all time. The piece that really struck me and sunk this for me was the ratio 100-1 compared to the ratio 12-2. And they teach this in the Red Book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book written by Gary Keller. They teach that, after years of study, what they understood was that if you have 12 people, every 12 people that you have that you communicate value to over a period of a year, and you give some form of consistent communication to, not spam, by the way. Spam doesn't count. That's not value. That's garbage.
Not your email newsletter.
No, not your email newsletter. You got to communicate value to them over the course of a period of a year. For every 12 people, there are 2 opportunities. So that means for every 250 people, there are 40 opportunities. So if you have 250 people in a Sphere database, that means that they know you, you know them. This is not a database like phone, email. This isn't just a collection of names. This isn't a phone book. These are people that know you. If they see you in the grocery store, they say, hi, DJ, good to see you, right? They say hello. 250 people will create 40 opportunities, 40 at-bats. That doesn't mean you'll get a closing, but 40 opportunities for every 250 people. Wow, what a great business. That's not that many, right? Versus the ratio of pay-per-click internet ads or strangers or cold calling or circle prospecting or door knocking. The ratio being 100-1.
Yeah.
So I just thought of that and said, so every time I go out, I should always invite 12 people. Because if I go out to dinner and I can get a table of 12, there's a high probability that there's 2 people at that table that have some real estate need or know somebody who has a real estate need. And I test it all the time, and it always winds up true. There's always somebody in a small group like that has something on their radar, and maybe not now, but sometime in the near future. So a Sphere-driven business that's backed up by events and giveaways can be a very, very powerful tool and way for you to, I call it, just kind of hack your lead generation in a way that makes the business a lot more fun, because it's a lot more fun to go to a beer tasting than to sit in a room for 4 hours and cold call.
Yeah, and boy, that makes all the sense in the world. I love that. And plus, there's a consistency to it that the clients grow to expect in a good way. Look forward to is a better way to say it.
We would always give away these custom pint glasses, and I would, for years, I still to this day get them. It's been 5 years since we did Harvest Fest. I'll get a picture texted to me of a pint glass full of beer with somebody saying, drinking out of my favorite pint glass, or I'll get a picture of a collection because somebody made 6 out of the 10 years. Like we had our fans for Harvest Fest. So
let's pivot just briefly to talk a little bit about, right now there's a flight for a lot of solo agents into teams, or the idea of creating a team. We're seeing a lot of value in, potential value, we'll say, in joining forces. You have a team. When somebody, I guess we'll start with people looking to join a team, and we should also mention, if you are in anywhere in Connecticut and you are not getting the attention you feel you need, or you're not getting the assistance that you want from your current brokerage or your current team lead, reach out to Matt and his team. He is very picky about who he selects because, of course, they're high producing, but he would love to chat with you and see if there's some synergy there. So you can reach out to him. We'll have his info in our show notes, and he's easy to find. Just Google him. But Matt, let's talk about individual agents that are going, should I join a team? What are some of your thoughts?
Well, I think fundamentally it's a philosophy. I think it starts with a philosophy, and it is the classic. And this is cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, because it's true. Teams operate really well with people who like to collaborate. Okay, and there are 2 different types of people. There are people who really enjoy collaboration and winning together, and there are people who really just want to go it alone and kind of, don't leave me alone, let me do my thing. If you're a collaborator, if you're a person that desires that, a team can be a great environment for you. There are 2 things that people really struggle with when they're an independent producer and they're asking the question, should I join a team? There's always 2. One is, there's one, because obviously if you're partnering with a team, the team has to get paid. So there's a different economic model. That's the first one. The other one is always identity, which is, or ego around the brand. But what about me and my name? The ego identity one is much easier to explain, because at the end of the day, the client doesn't care about the team any more than they care about the brokerage. They're in a relationship with you, the agent.
Nobody cares where you work or who you work for.
The team is nothing more than support and built in super efficient leverage. A really good team should be to a top producing solo agent. A top producing solo agent should look at a team like outsourced, already built, ready to run leverage. Like, you can build your own car or you can buy one and drive it. You're going to pay to just go to the car lot and buy a car that runs. But a really good team should be able to provide you a car that's just going to run. And by the way, the really good team should be you should be able to pull that car over when it needs new tires, and they're just going to put it on and say, "Hey, go hit the road again."
Someone's there to help you. Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to top it off with gas. They're going to create it. And I always said that I think that and I give Gary Keller a lot of credit. Gary wrote the Red Book at a time where he looked at the industry and said, what makes this industry a business? And he did a great job of articulating that. And I see that like he wrote the map. Like he was like Lewis and Clark to the real estate. He said, here's a map, here's a roadmap on how to build a high functioning, organization. It's not the only way to do it, but he wrote a map, like just like Lewis and Clark only took one path to the web, but there was lots of different ways to go. But he wrote it and he memorialized it, and he became, he got famous for it. Right. And I think what real estate teams did is they said, cool, now there's lots of these agents out there that have a map. But what we've learned is most of these agents are not great at building cars. Like, they're really, really good. They can read the map, but then they put together a car and they've got different size wheels and the hood's one color and the steering wheel's, and they're patching together, pieces of engine parts. And it's like, they're not great mechanics or automakers.
Oh, it's a totally different skill set. It's
totally different skill set. Right. And so the team, good teams, I always think of ourselves as like, we are the auto dealer. Like, we're where agents go because they're like, hey, I understand the map and I really want to go far. But I feel like it's going to take me a really long time to learn how to build this car thing that I should drive in. I'm currently riding a horse, but it looks like you've got a couple of cars that I could run in. And we say, yeah, we have a couple of cars. You could jump right in and start driving. Here's what our economic relationship looks like. Now, the thing is like, how much farther can you go in a car versus a horse? Yeah. And so when you start to actually look at the economics of, what does an average agent do when they're on their own? Again, we're talking about average. What do the average agents do when they're on their own versus what do the average agents do when they're on a team? Well, the average agent on our team is doing 35 to 40 deals a year. That's 6 times the national average. Yeah. So like, what are the odds that you're going to do 6 times the national average without driving a car? Probably you can do it yourself. You just have to build your own car. So I'm a firm believer in teams. I'm a firm believer, even though what also needs to be said is that agents need to also understand that many team leads are making no money too. Like it's not some like, line your pockets cash machine.
Yeah.
It's an incredibly difficult thing to take on. And agents and teams that do it really well, they honor their profit because they understand that in order to run an effective business, you have to be profitable. They honor the production because they understand that in order to have profit, you've got to have people that have all the tools and resources they need in order to go sell. They honor their growth because they know that agents that join a team aren't going to stick around very long if they're not growing and having new and bigger, better opportunities. And they honor their culture because nobody wants to be in a locker room where everybody's, pissed off and upset. So a good team runs by those 4 pillars, and agents that are collaborators by nature should be able to walk into, we call it a winning locker room experience, and they should feel it right away. They should feel like, these are my people. I totally get it. And I see how I make more money here. And then the outcome should be, then it's up to the team lead to deliver the outcome.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. And I also just want to just quickly touch on those of us that think joining a team will solve my lead problems. And there are teams that will dangle a carrot that looks like that, and maybe they can deliver on that promise. But what we're talking about is whether that's a good idea for an agent to look for that solution from that team. I'm sure you get this all the time.
Yeah,
totally. I know I get it as a recruiter. People are like, tell me about what leads you provide.
I think it's a, to me, it's a huge tell when an
Yeah,
agent says that they're in it for the leads.
100%.
It's a tell that they're not really a practitioner at the level of the business that we look for, and that they're always going to be at the mercy of external factors instead of just doing the work. Now, leads can take a mediocre producer and turn them into an average producer. Leads can take an average producer and turn them into an above average producer, but leads cannot take somebody who can't do the business and turn them into somebody who can.
Yeah.
And so, leads are what we often think of leads as like the icing on the cake. They're the reward for production,
Yeah.
but they are not that's not the engine of the car, right? So, the thing is remember, if your business is completely built around the idea that someone else has to do something first, you are inside of a supply chain that you have no control over.
You might as well be an employee at that point.
Yeah, you are an employee, right? You're just paying to go to work instead of
Mhm.
instead of them paying you. You're actually paying to show up. So I mean, we as a team, as a philosophy, of course, because we have market share, we get tons of leads. Of course, because we've been in the business for years, we get tons of leads. Of course, because we have a database that we communicate lots to, we get lots of leads. So we have lots of inbound leads, but as a product of our value proposition, it never comes up. When
Yeah.
we're talking to an agent that's interested in joining a high performing team where the average agent is making a lot of money, succeeding at a high level, on the leaderboard every month, um, when they ask about leads, we say, yeah, they're here, but that's literally not even close to the reason you should be here. You should be here
Sure.
because you want to win championships and you want to be in the winning locker room. And so, it's that again, it's a disqualifier if somebody's looking for it,
100%.
because we have them and we get tons of them, but and we give them to our producers. We operate on a
Yeah.
meritocracy.
You're a business. Of course, you give them to the people most likely to close.
Well, that's also something that I've always found kind of interesting. Like, because I've had agents come to me in the past and be like, hey, I'm getting recruited, and the person said they'd give me leads, and I go, that's cool. How do you feel about the idea that they'll give you leads, but not give leads to their top producers that are already on their team? What's that mean for you once you're in the door? And they're like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm like, well, again, what's that do? Like, why would they've had those people have had agents on their team 4, 5, 6 years,
Yeah.
and they're going to give leads to you? That's weird to me. Like, that's just culturally doesn't sound good. I don't want to be in that environment.
From a business perspective, it doesn't sound like a smart
Yeah,
play
it's not a
because
smart move.
Zillow has their flex program. They don't want to give those are the leads that you pay on the back end, not
Right.
up front. And they're going to be really picky about who gets those leads because at the end of the day, they need those leads closed.
That's right.
And bringing on a new person is a bit of an unknown. And you're right; it's certainly an enticing carrot to dangle in front of somebody. But if you really think about it, like first of all, a firm never has too many leads. It's never, oh, we have so many leads, we need to
Never.
bring in some new people. Maybe, I guess that's possible, but it's very unlikely. And again, why are they not giving those to the people that are most likely to close, that they have assurance because they work there? Yeah, that is. And if that's part of their recruiting strategy, then that's going to continue to be part of their recruiting strategy.
What we really live by, that philosophy of the teach a man to fish versus give a man a fish. And the concept is, we can teach somebody how to lead generate. Like, we're actually really, really good at that. And the reason we're good at it is because we have this built-in infrastructure around events and giveaways and database management that allows an agent to show up here. Again, we have a race car, and we allow an agent to show up here and kind of hand over all their tools and parts. And we say, cool, we're going to build you a car. And then you just have to learn how to be a great driver. I need you to be a fantastic driver. I need you to be the best driver ever. I need you to drive the track all day. I need you to learn every turn. I need you to learn the speeds to take it at. I need you to be the best driver you can possibly be. Stop worrying about the car. I'll take care of the tires. I'll take care of the hood. I'll take care of the rest of it. We'll make sure that the gas is always topped off. We'll make sure the oil's changed. You just learn to be a great driver. And most agents are like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because all I really wanted to do was drive anyway. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really want to be a mechanic. And you find yourself in it. And by the way, like, this speaks to something else you said earlier. Like, I think the industry does a huge disservice to a lot of agents by giving them tons of distraction points. Like, we're low hanging fruit for separating from our money because agents are looking for a shortcut, and they don't really understand. I'm going to use the car analogy again. They don't really understand how the car works. And so if you don't understand how the car works and somebody's selling you a flux capacitor, you go like, oh, do I need that? And they're like, oh, if you want to time travel, you do. Well, awesome. Give that. They forget that they need 1.21 gigawatts from a lightning bolt in order to make the thing work. So they're out
Right.
there buying flux capacitors, putting them in their car, and they don't even know what they do. And whether that's some advanced CRM system or lead generation system or outsourced ISA system, all of it is too much money for what you're spending. You just need to do the job. And if you did the job, you don't have to spend all that money. You can actually have a profit and have a fantastic, fulfilling life, by the way.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
it's almost keeping those blinders on and just going back to fundamentals. The things that we know are tried, tested, and true. And yeah, maybe they're not super sexy or fun. And doing push-ups isn't fun. And I have to do those too. And much as I don't want to have to do a push-up ever again, or a squat, we'll say push-ups I can handle. Squats, to me are just not my favorite.
I'm with
But
you.
it's a really good idea. It's a
Don't
really
love-
good idea to do squats,
Yeah.
even if you have good form, by the way, only if you have good form. But the point is you have to do sort of the things that we know are going to get the ball down the field. And in this business, it is relationship building. You've said it. And we didn't even get to a third of the topics that I wanted to cover. But Matt is a super, super busy guy. His team is crushing, closing 2 deals a day, on average, which is incredible in this market. And so I want everybody to do a couple of things. One, I want you to check out Matt's podcast, which is the Real Estate MD. He's diagnosing problems. He's doing live coaching on his show. It's how cool is that? I have something I do very similar. I'm not the coach, however, but I have found that to be really fun. And if again, one agent's challenges is every agent's challenge. So even if you go to his podcast and you hear something, you're like, well, I'm not currently dealing with that. You will be soon, or you will at some point. So hearing that, even just hearing somebody else's challenges get solved or get worked on will help you, or you'll get some wisdom. So definitely check out Real Estate MD. We will have a link to that in the show notes. And also, I want you to continue to support Matt. Check out his website, the Miale team. If you are two opportunities here. If you're an agent in the Connecticut area, reach out. You're looking for a team to join, a high performing team. Matt has all sorts of wonderful programs that he's built. And again, building that car for you, teaching you how to operate that car. That's his job, and you're going to go in and run that car and get some pretty amazing results. His track record speaks for itself. His team is unbelievable. So if you're in the Connecticut area, and Matt, you are expanding. Do you want to share a little bit about where some of our listeners who maybe aren't in the Connecticut area might want to think about?
We are already in Massachusetts, operating in southern Massachusetts, Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield area. We are expanding into Putnam and Westchester County in New York, and we're actively in the process of looking for partners in Rhode Island. And our expansion too. I love to it's a long story, but I love to talk a little bit about this only because it is and has always been my philosophy to do it right, not rushed. And so we are looking for the right partners that want to follow the playbook that's got proven results and that are looking to win at the level that we're winning at. And so it's always right, not rushed. It's find the right people, and then the results follow.
Well, reach out to Matt if you are interested in either becoming a partner with Matt or becoming, part of his team, or if you're an agent, totally different part of the country who doesn't service the area Matt services, but have clients that move to and from those areas that Matt mentioned. He needs referral partners as well, and he has people that move out of his area, and he needs to send those leads along the way. So, what a great team to get in contact with. So reach out to him, see if you guys have some synergy and can connect and help each other. Also, on behalf of the audience, want to thank Matt for his time today. Unbelievable. He's great. His podcast is amazing. Please check it out. Please subscribe. And we will have him back for sure. On behalf of Matt and myself, want to thank the audience. You're the reason we do the show. We appreciate you. We've been going on, I think it's our 7th year now. So thank you for everyone who's listening. Please tell a friend. That's the best way that you can help us continue to grow. Think of one other agent. There was so much that Matt provided in this conversation, so much great wisdom and just tactical ideas, right? There's actually things you can do that come straight from this conversation. So please pass this off to anyone that you feel could use a boost. Of course, everyone could. So we appreciate that as well. And also check out our sponsors. They're the reason we can continue to do the show. We love them as well. So we will see everyone on the next episode. Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you, DJ. It's been awesome. Thanks to all the listeners, and really, really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.